on this computer. OK, alors nous commençons tout de suite. Pour ceux qui juste viennent de nous joindre, la présentation, c'est en anglais et en français. Je m'appelle Carly. Sauvez vos questions jusqu'à la fin, mais si c'est une question de compréhension de ce que je dis, soit en anglais, soit en français, levez la main, c'est un tout petit groupe. Alors, oui, c'est tout. OK, prochainement. OK, on va commencer avec, une reconnaissance de la déclaration de reconnaissance des territoires traditionnels de Glendon. Alors, le voici, OK. Glendon, en tant que partie intégrante de l'Université York, reconnaît sa présence sur le territoire traditionnel de nombreuses nations autochtones. La région connue comme Takloronto a été préservée par la nation Anishinaabe, la Confédération Haudenosaunee, les Huron-Wendat et les Métis. Elle est désormais le foyer d'un grand nombre de peuples autochtones. Nous reconnaissons les titulaires actuels du traité, la Première Nation des Mississauga de New Credit. Ce territoire est soumis au traité de la ceinture wampum, Dish with One Spoon, entente définissant le partage et la préservation pacifique de la région des Grands Lacs. Alors, nous sommes pas présentement à Glendon. Moi, je le suis, pas juste dans mon arrière-fond, mais présentement, je suis à Glendon. Donc, oui, la déclaration applique à moi, mais si vous êtes hors de Toronto, dans une autre région, je vous encourage de faire une petite recherche pour savoir un peu à propos de l'histoire de la région où vous vous trouvez présentement, and just to look up the proper land acknowledgement for your region. Okay, on passe. Okay, so this is the agenda, the overview of the session's content today. So we did our poll. We saw that folks aren't tout à fait familiers avec ces options. Peut-être que vous êtes au courant de quelques informations au sujet de ces prix. But what today is more of a general overview of what is available to you as, you know, an undergraduate who's thinking of pursuing master's studies, you know, or a current master's student, or even a PhD student. The PhD, I must admit, was added a bit à la dernière minute. Ce n'est pas ma spécialisation du tout. J'ai seulement aidé jusqu'à date une personne et demie avec leur demande pour le doctorat. So again, I want to emphasize also that I am really learning this, not quite directly alongside you all, mais je suis seulement comme un petit pas à l'avance. Alors, mon but pour aujourd'hui, c'est juste de partager l'information que je possède, mais qui est vraiment sur l'Internet. It's on the internet. It's just presented in the most confusing, not straightforward, convoluted way. And there are a million links that you will have to open at once. Alors, votre écran va être rempli de différents tabs. Donc, that's my goal. And I hope if you have goals beyond just getting information, that you will come to the next workshop in the session and that you will come to step 2 and step 3, which I will talk about more at the end. But it's essentially learning more about certain aspects of the présentation de la bourse. So different parts of your application. Aussi que une session avec moi pour revoir et réviser la proposition de recherche, qui est une grande partie de la demande pour ces prix. So, suivant. Okay, so I don't know if you folks have heard of les trois conseils. C'est quelque chose, okay, how do I say it? It's a governmental organization that basically each of the three councils has different mandates regarding research. So, voici les trois conseils en français et en anglais. Tous les diapos seront en français et en anglais, et sinon, je vais indiquer peut-être pas toutes les informations étaient possibles de mettre sur un diapo, donc je vais juste signaler, vous signaler quand c'est le cas. So there are three different funding agencies that provide research funding opportunities for students at different levels. So we have the master's level, the doctoral level, and also, to faculty members, to researchers beyond graduate students. And there are different award opportunities at each level, and the way in which the awards are granted and given and organized all differ pretty much between the institutions. So again, just to repeat that this workshop, peut-être il va avoir trop d'informations aujourd'hui, mais c'est l'idée que vous serez un peu débordé, right? Overwhelmed by the information, but vous allez avoir accès à ces diapositives après. Je vais les envoyer via courriel, par courriel. Et comme tu peux voir, il y a des liens partout dans la présentation. So one part of the funding at the federal level that is tied to specifically the Cgsm or the CGSD, which I'll get to in a moment. So it's Canada Graduate Scholarships Masters or Canada Graduate Scholars Doctoral. En français, c'est un peu plus long, mais l'acronyme est BESCM ou BESCD. So these three councils, they fund these prix, and you have to figure out which one of these councils is the one who is going to support your research. Again, I'll get into it more in a minute, but there's basically this guide right here that tells you, okay, your research is in English literature from the 19th century. That and you're reading about, that's your topic. That's going to be for the Social Sciences and Humanities Council of Canada. Okay, your topic is on plant biology in Iceland. That means that your federal funding agency is going to be the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada. Where it gets a bit confusing and a bit difficult is with health-related topics, surtout la psychologie. C'est vraiment difficile de savoir où diriger vos recherches. And that's why I'm going to, again, connect you to this guide. There's all this information that lists, si vous faites la psychologie clinique, so clinical psychology, you're going to be in this one. If your clinical psychology is about this specific topic, you're going to be in that one. So I don't want to bore you with too much of this, and because it's actually pretty clearly laid out. But again, si tu n'es pas certain, tu peux me contacter. Tu peux même contacter des personnes à ces trois conseils. They have a hotline that you can call where you can speak to a representative if you're ever unsure of the council that is going to fund your research. Okay. Mon souris. Okay. Okay. So à la maîtrise, il y a vraiment deux options principales. Again, there's, like I said, the Cgsm, which is the Canada Graduate Scholarship. That's the one that's federally funded. So again, for the Cgsm, you'll have to figure out which tri-council you're applying to. But for the OGS, it's a provincial, hence Ontario, graduate scholarship. And they both have different requirements, which we'll go through, and different ways of applying, right? The logistics of applying differs, but there are some similarities and some overlap, which we'll go through. For instance, they both require a research proposal, they both require transcripts, and they both require some form of an academic CV. And again, we'll go into depth about what each part of the application is and what's sort of demanded of it. But I think, and you folks can correct me if I'm wrong, because some of you are actually more well seasoned in these processes than I am from a personal standpoint, I think, dépendant de votre niveau d'études. Alors, dépendant de votre niveau d'études, tu peux me dire si on fait une demande pour le BESCM ou si on fait la demande pour le BESO, il y a des similarités, donc il vaut la peine de faire les deux parfois. There's so much overlap between them that it's almost worthwhile to just try for both. But take that as you will. Il y a un message dans le chat. Oui, the in-person isn't canceled. I'm so sorry. I'll just read it out. Hello, I signed up for the in-person version, but no one was in A202. Is the in-person canceled? Yes, the in-person is canceled. I had sent out an email this morning with the Zoom link to say that it would be online only. I'm so sorry about that. My apologies. I hope you're able to tune in now and join us. Thank you. So sorry. Alors, voici les deux options pour la maîtrise. Il y a des similarités, donc je vous encourage. If you're going to do one, try doing both. Okay. Pardon, il y a des problèmes techniques. Okay. Okay, so for doctoral students, funnily enough, there are these same two options, but there are even more within each of the tri-councils. So I'm just going to go over today what I know about the CGSD and the OGS for doctoral students, which again has some overlap with master's students. So again, il y a des différences. Okay, je dois juste signaler quelque chose très vite. For Canada graduate scholarships, for the doctoral scholarships versus the Cgsm, the doctoral piece is much more complicated than the one at the master's level, because this is when I was going off about les trois conseils, this is the part that is key to determine, especially for the CGSD, because each of the tri-councils has their own méthode, instruction, moyen de faire une demande. So right away, you need to pick, okay, or you need to it's not even pick, you have to determine whether you are doing it for SSHRC, NSERC, or CIHR. Et pardon, j'ai pas mémorisé tous ces acronymes en français. So ils sont sur l'écran, mais it's CRESH en français, CRSH. It's really helpful though. All of the links are en français ainsi qu'en anglais. Et dans les diapos, j'ai spécifiquement mis le français, les liens en français du côté français et les liens en anglais du côté anglais pour vous aider. Okay, so regardless if you're applying to the Cgsm, le BESO, pour soit au maîtrise, soit au niveau doctorat, il faut considérer pas seulement pourquoi je fais cette demande, ça c'est numéro 3, mais est-ce que vous êtes admissible? Quels sont les critères de sélection? What are the timelines? What's the process going to be? And est-ce que ça vaut la peine de le faire? Right? Tout d'abord, il est vraiment important de vérifier votre admissibilité. L'admissibilité pour le BESO et le BESCM et D diffèrent. They all have different eligibility criteria. For example, one that I know off the top of my head, I believe that for the Cgsm, you must be a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident. So, but for the OGS, I believe this is not the case. You just have to have a valid Ontario address. And then GPA, right? So they always say on the Cgsm and OGS website, first class standing. Mais c'est quoi first class standing? Ça diffère de chaque institution auquel vous faites votre demande. So at York, first class standing is an A-. So if you're applying to the OGS, which we'll get into, the OGS requires first class standing, but you do an individual application for each program and each institution that you are applying for. So say you're an undergraduate student at York and you would really like to continue your studies at York. That's great. York requires an A-, that's their version of first class standing, and you will put through an OGS application through the York University portals that you will find on the FGS website. I provide them later in the slides. But if you're a York University undergrad and you would like to go to another institution, say U of T, say U Ottawa, they both have different ways of submitting applications for the OGS to each of the institutions. I see I have a message in the chat. What's an A-? Is it an 8/9? That is a good question. I'm not 100% sure. I believe there is on the York website, when you look up the GPA standing, they do show the grade point average and the conversion to letter grade. Also, you'll have to note that York uses a 9 scale, right? I believe, and other universities do not. So you're going to have to convert your GPA based on the scale. There isn't an A- though on their site. Very good question. Okay, so one, I don't then know the typical answer to your question, I will admit. So I can look into that, but can we also just save questions to the end? You can leave them in the chat if you want to remember them, but I just want to get through the big bulk of the presentation, and then we can spend time answering questions at the end, and you folks can stay, because I know some of you might only have the hour. But I thank you for posing your questions. Okay, grade count. Thank you, Fiona, for posting that in the chat. That is super helpful, and I think that might be the page I was talking about. Okay. So where was I? Okay, student status, level and year of study. So it's not only are you in a master's or a doctoral program, it's sort of the type of program that you're admitted to. So for example, we'll go over this in a later slide, but if you're in a master's program that is primarily focused on coursework, that is most likely not eligible for the Cgsm. The Cgsm requires a strong research component. Then the selection criteria, we're going to go over it, but they evaluate based on these general criteria. And again, it's a bit different from each institution with the OGS, but with the Cgsm, they have clearly laid out the percentages, and these are the two: academic excellence and research potential are the two major categories. And there's a third through which you are evaluated. And then again, I'm throwing a lot of information at you today, but est-ce que ça vaut la peine de faire une demande pour ces bourses? You know, it's time consuming, it's confusing, but you'll see it can be really worthwhile. Okay, just. Oh, for the PhD, I just want to flag this. So for the CGSD, you cannot have completed more than 24 months of full-time study in your doctoral program. So si vous avez dépassé 2 années de votre programme de doctorat, tu ne peux pas, vous n'êtes pas admissible. So again, just review the eligibility criteria before you then even can move on to building your application. I would even review the selection criteria to think about, est-ce que j'ai vraiment de la chance à gagner cette bourse? Est-ce que j'ai des expériences requises? Est-ce que j'ai participé à la recherche au niveau de premier cycle? And also, do I have the time to dedicate to this properly, right? I think it's best to, in this case, to give a solid effort, vous avez besoin du temps. OK, voici le diapo en français, pardon. Ça, c'est un exemple de quand toutes les informations ne peuvent pas être sur le même diapo, mais c'est en français ici. Okay, so here's a general overview of the Cgsm award. The deadline has not yet passed, but December 1st will soon be here. And you must submit it before 8 p.m. So a question that I think some of you folks might have is, if you're in undergrad and you're not already enrolled in a master's program and you haven't yet applied, are you still eligible? The short answer is yes. And you will need to put in this application even before you apply to the programs that you are hoping to attend. Because in my experience, helping folks like you with this process is that the application deadline for graduate studies programs, so juste pour être admise à un programme d'études supérieures dans votre discipline de choix, les dates limites sont plus tard dans l'année, peut-être dans 2022. And so they're later than the application deadline for the awards. But even though that may seem overwhelming, toutes les informations qui sont requises pour le BSCM sont aussi requises pour votre demande d'études supérieures. So you're just getting the work done a bit earlier. And that, in the end, could be very helpful to you if you also see the award applications as sort of a first try, a first shot. Okay, je vois un message dans le chat. Okay, merci Eric. Okay, oui, et tu vas recevoir un courriel. Merci à toi. Okay, so, okay. Yes, so I would recommend that if you're interested in applying to graduate school or you're already in graduate school, put forward this application because it can really help you to think about what it is you want to study in graduate school. Why do you want to go? What is it that you want to study? And it could even help you to first see les demandes de bourse comme un premier essai pour le processus de faire une demande aux études supérieures. So one thing I'm going to note here is the research portal. So again, everything is sort of done through these online mechanisms or logiciels that are run through the federal government for the Cgsm. And one of them is the research portal. And souvent, il y a un grand nombre d'utilisateurs du portail avant la date limite ou sur la date limite. Et souvent, le logiciel cause des délais, il y a des problèmes avec le programme d'ordinateur. So I would recommend getting your application early before the deadline because the online portal could very well crash. Et je vais aussi donner vous un petit tutoriel sur le portail de recherche et sur une autre portail qu'il faut utiliser pour le BSCM pendant les séances dans 2 semaines. Okay, and then for, which I see is cut off here, I'm so sorry, but for the same award, but for the doctoral level, again, it's a bit complicated because each tri-council has different deadlines, but overall, not different deadlines, different ways of applying to the application. Mais la date limite pour tous les 3 pour le BSCM est le 17 October. So if you haven't already started, I don't want to be discouraging, but I think it might be too late. There are a lot of moving pieces. There are a lot of papers to get in order. You have to have references, and in general, it's a good rule of thumb to ask for references a minimum of 2 weeks minimum before the deadline. So we're unfortunately over 2 weeks. That's in 10 days, right? But this is still good information to know, depending on what year of your PhD you're in. And also, I just want to flag here that SSHRC and all the tri-councils have this weird rule about si la date limite tombe un jour de fin de la semaine, vous pouvez présenter votre demande avant le jour ou le jour ouvrable suivant. So October 17th is on a weekend. So I would get the application in before the weekend if possible. But if you need the weekend, they'll give you the next business day, so the Monday. But then again, be careful because the site could crash. Just want to flag that for you. Okay, j'ai déjà mentionné que une grande partie de votre admissibilité est si votre programme d'études supérieures est admissible. Alors, ça, c'est l'explication qu'il donne sur le site de BSCM. Alors, votre programme d'études doit avoir une importante composante de recherche, which means des travaux de recherche autonomes et originaux qui aboutissent à la réalisation d'une thèse, d'un projet de recherche important, d'un mémoire, d'une publication érudite, d'un spectacle, etc., etc. Basically, si ces programmes d'études sont axés uniquement sur les travaux de cours, ils sont généralement pas admissibles. There are a few exceptions that I would encourage you to go look at on the website. Again, it's linked in the slideshow. But again, if it's mainly coursework and you're not doing independent research under the supervision of a professor, it is likely that you're not eligible for the Cgsm. Mais si vous avez des doutes, ce n'est pas à moi qu'il faut demander, c'est à votre nouveau département d'études. So again, if you're applying to U of T or U Ottawa or wherever, they will have the information about what funding you're eligible for. Again, it's confusing, I realize, because if you're not already admitted into the program and you're in the process of applying, you might not have secured your spot in that program. But again, as part of the research process, it's something that's important to do. Okay, alors le diapo en anglais, mais c'est le même contenu. Okay, so I already started mentioning some of the important elements of the Cgsm application. So we have a Canadian Common CV. What is that? We're going to go into detail about what that is in the later session. The later session in 2 weeks is, I believe, an hour and a half, if not 2 hours. So we're going to really get a chance to look through the portal and see what it is that is asked of the Canadian Common CV, because essentially it's not quite an academic CV. It's not quite a resume. It's basically a portal where you input all of your personal information, including, you know, past publications, including you know, research assistant positions held, information about conferences you've maybe attended, as well as personal information like your address, phone number, etc. But again, there's the Canadian Common CV portal and there's the research portal. And again, these are both very difficult, not very difficult to use, but they're a bit tedious, and it's a government website. So it doesn't look the prettiest, to say the least, and we'll go over it, but I'll show you briefly today as well. Les relevés de notes. Aussi, il y a des exigences de comment on présente le relevé de notes dans la demande. Il faut que toutes vos notes de toutes les institutions que vous avez où vous avez fait vos études doit être dans un document PDF en noir et blanc ou grayscale, noir et blanc. And then the research proposal, which is 1 page, and you have a 1 page of citations. And again, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to go over comment on fait la proposition de recherche, quelles sont les parties. Et je suis ici pour vous aider vraiment principalement avec cette partie de la demande. And then you need 2 reference letters, which are, again, submitted through the research portal. So you don't actually get to see the reference letters, I believe. You send sort of a notification to your referees, and they will upload their reference letters directly to this portal on your behalf. So 4 main parts. And I would just, again, remind you that references are really important, and this can be very tricky to maneuver. So I would encourage you to ask for reference letters well in advance of the deadline, like I mentioned earlier, but also talk to your references about what it is you want them to include in the letter, right? Maybe they should see a copy of your research proposal. Maybe they should see your CV, whether that be the academic CV, a resume, the Canadian Common CV. I also recommend that you have a conversation with the referee about why it is you want to pursue graduate studies, or why it is you are already pursuing graduate studies, so that they have information to write a really robust reference letter for you. And again, the reference letter shouldn't just be about who you are as a general person, but it should really be about who you are as a researcher. What makes you a good researcher? Why should you be awarded this prize that specifically has to do with conducting research in a graduate studies context? And where will you go if you receive this award? What's your potential? I'd also like to note that the Glendon Career Skills and Development Center, alors le Centre de carrière et de développement de compétences, a plusieurs ateliers sur le sujet des études supérieures. Il y a, je crois, 4 ou 5 ateliers qui fait partie de leur série sur les études supérieures. And they even have 1 workshop specifically about requesting reference letters and what to do in this process. OK, maintenant pour le BESCD, encore, c'est plus compliqué, mais certains des éléments sont le même. Like, I didn't write here Canadian Common CV because I learned today that you don't put your you don't use the Canadian Common CV portal for the CGSD, but you do for the Cgsm. So each of the tri-councils has their own portal through which you will submit your curriculum vitae, your academic CV, without sort of all the kind of expanded descriptions, from what I understand. Votre proposition de recherche, vous avez plus d'espace. Tu as 2 pages au lieu d'1 page. Pour la bibliographie et les citations, tu as 5 pages. You actually have a whole extra part of the application where you are able to just speak about yourself as a scholar, your contributions to your community, to the institution, etc. And then again, there are 2 reference letters that are requested. They're not officially called reference letters through the different funding portals, but they are essentially reference letters. And again, it's an invitation that's sent to your professor online, and they will fill out the form for you. Okay, this slide est vraiment juste toutes les informations que j'ai découvertes lors de faire mes propres recherches sur le BESCM. Comme j'ai dit auparavant, il y a plusieurs liens, il y a plusieurs pages, mais j'ai essayé de les mettre dans un place, comme to condense them, to really make them accessible in one spot for you all. So they kind of go over some of the main components, like how do you complete a Canadian Common CV? Quels sont instructions pour la présentation du demande parce que, comme j'ai mentionné auparavant, tu as besoin de mettre les relevés de notes dans noir et blanc dans un document PDF. Donc, ça, c'est seulement 2 instructions parmi, pas beaucoup, mais d'autres, comme la taille de la police, de caractère, la taille des marges de votre page aussi. So just, again, before you start and before you decide if this is something you want to pursue, read all of this, go over it, reflect on it, ask yourself, is this worth my time? Do I have the energy to dedicate to this? OK, on passe. J'ai essayé de faire la même chose avec le BESCD, malheureusement, parce que c'est unique à chacun des 3 conseils. J'ai pas pu mettre tous les mini-liens pour chacun des 3 conseils. C'est un joli chat. J'ai pas pu mettre les mini-liens, mais il y a un survol dans le premier lien qui explique ça explique les similarités entre les 3 demandes pour le le BESCM. Aussi, comme j'ai déjà vu sur les sites web de BESCD, il y a plusieurs autres prix auxquels tu peux postuler avec la demande de BESCD. Donc, si tu as déjà fait le demande pour BESCD, il y a seulement quelques autres éléments à suivre, quelques étapes supplémentaires à suivre pour recevoir encore de fonds. So, encore, je reste à la fin de la présentation pour en discuter plus si tu veux. J'ai une question dans le chat. OK. Quelqu'un a dit me too, thank you. Mais je ne sais pas pourquoi on dit me too, mais ça va. Si tu as besoin de partir, pas grave. Mais si tu veux rester jusqu'à la fin, ça va aussi. I need to leave, yeah. OK, parfait. Au revoir, Sarah. Merci pour être venue. J'espère que c'était un peu utile. À la prochaine. Will you share these slides in the recording in an email later? That was the idea. But I encourage you, if you can stay now, it would be great to have your présence ici parce que je vais répondre à des questions maintenant, mais si tu as besoin de partir, ça va aussi. So these are the selection criteria for the Cgsm. Again, it's sort of divided into 3 categories and they're all weighted differently, and they all apply to different parts of the application. So because you have, I would say 4 major parts of the Cgsm, this is sort of the overall evaluation, but there are different parts in each application, and there are different opportunities rather in each part of the application to meet this criteria, to touch on these points. And each of these 3 categories have some kind of markers or indicators of how they evaluate academic excellence and how they evaluate research potential. So one thing that I just wanted to flag to you all is that you know, the application works together as a whole to fulfill this criteria. And it's not that just the academic CV is going to determine academic excellence, or, you know, just the research proposal will determine research potential. That's not the case. You're evaluated, from what I understand, on a global scale, and there are opportunities within each part of the application to hit these targets. So there are subcategories, and some of the subcategories. So for academic excellence, I'll read them out, but again, ils sont sur le site web pour le BESCM, ce qui est un site web différent de celle que le BESCD. So academic excellence indicators are your academic record, scholarships and awards held, duration of previous studies, type of program and courses pursued, course load, your relative standing. So, you know, questions really related to your academic record that will come up on your academic CV, but also things that you could potentially expand on in other elements of the application, right? So for example, if you want a scholarship that's relevant to your research and your research studies, you could include that at the very end of the research proposal. I'm going to carry on because I see we're running out of time and I have quite a few slides left. Voici comment et où vous montrez votre talent. Comme j'ai dit, le relevé de notes, la proposition de recherche, le CV commun, etc. Again, very similar for the CGSD, but it's split up into two categories. And again, because there are more documents to submit, I didn't show all the documents to submit, but I did it on a previous slide. Because there are more documents to submit, you have more space. But I think the idea around having more space is that because you are more advanced in your studies, there will naturally be more to say than if you were an undergraduate student who's applying for a master's. So regardless of if you're in your PhD or your master's or applying for your master's, the space is limited. So you really have to think about what is the most relevant to the award that you're applying to the idea of research, to the idea of graduate studies, to these evaluation criteria, right? What is important. I'm gonna gloss over this. Again, we're running out of time, but basically there is a survey, a self-identification survey that is asked of you. It's really for internal purposes from what I understand, and there is an option not to answer, but it is mandatory. I think it's basically for les trois conseils d'évaluer et de voir comment s'ils ont du succès à faire du recrutement et de donner des prix à une diversité de personnes. You know, are they diversifying who they're granting awards to? Are their research topics and areas and the people who are doing the research diverse? Ok, voici le portail pour le CV commun canadien. Parce qu'on n'a pas vraiment assez du temps aujourd'hui, je ne vais pas donner le tutoriel to show how to navigate it. I will go over this though in 2 weeks at the presentation. I will show you what it looks like inside the portal once you log in and what elements are required and how to fill it out. It's straightforward enough, but it's a bit finicky. Okay. J'ai déjà donné quelques-uns de ces conseils, donc c'est juste à vous de savoir. Commencez le plus tôt possible, demandez vos relevés de notes à l'avance, rappelez à vos références de soumettre leur évaluation à l'avance, demande-le pour créer les lettres à l'avance, early, as soon as possible. Get this ready. I would also recommend you, just before I go on to this part, I'd really recommend that you make your own internal deadlines, you know, make your own goals. When do you want this part of the application done? When do you want this other part of the application done? When are you going to review the application? When are you going to have your professor who gave you a great reference letter to review the application for you, with you, to get another set of eyes? Are you going to come and take advantage of the resources offered by the research office, and will you get me to look over your research proposal? All things that are possible, again, depending on how much time and effort you want to spend on this. Maintenant, on passe au BESCO, qui est encore une occasion pour les étudiants à la maîtrise ou au doctorat pour faire une demande de financement. It's open to all disciplines at all universities in Ontario that participate. There is a list of universities that I provide you with, and again, it shows on the website. But because I mentioned earlier that the OGS applications are specific to the institution that you are applying to, you really have to look on that university's website. I really cannot, unfortunately, answer you answer your questions about what is required at each university for the OGS. I don't know. I know a bit about what's required at York, but I have no affiliation with U of T or U Ottawa. I keep using those as my two examples, so we'll stick to that. But I can tell you what I see on the OGS website, which is that you're eligible in your master's, in your doctoral studies, and these are sort of the parameters under which you're eligible in terms of like how much funding you're actually eligible for. And it's a bit confusing. I had to read it a few times. So from my understanding, 2 consecutive study terms, just a study term is a semester. So a whole year, you get $10,000 if you're enrolled in fall and winter, $15,000 for 3. And there are also maximums. So from what I understand, you cannot, there are lifetime maximums. So for anyone in the OGS, whether you're, maybe you're in your second master's or you've been in your doctoral studies for a long time, you can't win money for more than 6 academic terms, study terms. Again, it's all outlined on their website. And it is a bit confusing. Again, I had to read it a few times. If you have any questions, like I'm always happy to try and help you navigate it, like no problem. But again, when in doubt, really contact the institution. And OGS is another really great opportunity as well. So this is some information about the OGS at York. And again, because it's specific to each institution, this is the York website. And it's the same deadline as the Cgsm, just to flag that for you. Here are some more tips. Again, really, I just want to stress to do things in advance. Le plus tôt possible. Termine la demande au moins 3 jours avant la date limite, so you can revise it. You can get another set of eyes. Maybe you can just forget about it 3 days in advance. Wouldn't that be nice? And get it in early. And again, what makes a strong reference? Show your reference, your research proposal, even if it's not finalized. Give them, a copy, a rough copy, so that they can get an idea of your research interests. And again, les demandes, les parties pour faire une demande sont très similaires pour le BESO ainsi que le BESCM. So you will need a research statement, kind of like a proposal, reference letters, transcripts, knowledge about your educational background, research contributions, etc. Stuff that's really relevant. I'm just going to read the chat. Okay, I'm going to save this question for the end. It's really long. I appreciate it, but I'm just going to whip through the next few slides and then we'll pause for questions at the end. Okay, so in addition to the OGS, the Cgsm, the CGSD, there are other award opportunities, as I mentioned. These are awards that I flagged mainly through York's information, but each institution that you are applying for, if you're in your undergraduate studies, will have sections on their website dedicated to graduate studies funding opportunities. So York's website is actually quite good on the Faculty of Graduate Studies, and I would really recommend you go and check them out, because you never know what you're eligible for. You never know, there are internal awards. The ones I mentioned today are deemed external awards, but there are additional external awards besides the OGS and the Cgsm. And also because I mentioned earlier that international students, for instance, are not, unfortunately, depending on their status in Canada, are likely not eligible for the Cgsm. So I would encourage those folks to check out what other external scholarships are available to them. OK. J'ai déjà posé et mentionné quelques-uns de ces points, de mes conseils ici. Donc, pourquoi même faire une demande? Ça semble comme beaucoup de travail. J'ai mentionné qu'il faut vraiment commencer plus tôt. J'ai mentionné que même pour la demande de doctorat, la date limite est trop proche pour même commencer la demande. Donc, pourquoi même essayer? Ça semble vraiment difficile. Well, I would encourage you to still try. I think it's a really great exercise to get you thinking about why it is you want to go to graduate school. If you're already in graduate school, it's a great exercise for you to sort of refine your research, to get you more familiar with the area that you're studying, to really be able to talk about what it is you're doing inside the classroom and outside the classroom, whether you're working on an independent research study with a professor that takes form X or form Y as a final product. I think another thing that's really important is que vous allez créer un réseau autour de vous. Alors, j'ai déjà mentionné que vous avez besoin des lettres de recommandation. Les personnes, les professeurs qui vous demandent ces lettres, ils veulent que tu aies du succès dans la vie, que vous réussissez dans ces demandes. So they're there for you. They want to support you. You're creating a great network to help you achieve your goals. Encore une fois, je sais que je vous ai donné beaucoup d'informations. C'est un grand survol. Il y a plusieurs liens. Vous allez avoir accès à ces diapos, à la session téléchargée, soit d'aujourd'hui, soit de demain. Regardless, I'll probably send it to you. I'll try to send it off tomorrow after the Friday morning workshop. So that's my goal. You won't get the recording and the slides today. I'm going to send it to everyone on Friday afternoon. Again, I would just encourage you, tu ne dois pas faire des décisions aujourd'hui si vous allez faire une demande, si vous-même voulez faire des études supérieures, si ça vaut la peine, si ça ne vaut pas la peine. Just stop, breathe, take in the information, reflect, think about your goals, maybe ask me, I'm happy to chat, listen to what it is you're interested in doing, at Glendon or after Glendon. I'm happy to give you my unsolicited advice if you want it. And in that case, if you ask, I guess it's not unsolicited. J'ai déjà mentionné que le centre de carrière et de développement de compétences a plusieurs ressources sur les éléments d'une demande aux études supérieures. So like general information about applying to graduate studies, whether that be the personal statement that is sometimes asked, which is not really asked in the Cgsm or the OGS, but elements of it are involved. So take advantage of these resources. They also have a great website. Il y a plusieurs ressources d'autres universités qui sont indiquées sur ce site web, des petits fiches, so like informational worksheets, handouts from other universities as well as York that are really helpful on these. I'm also aware of a what is it? It's sort of like a quiz or a test of some sort, like a self-test on the Career Center website at the Kiel campus about whether you should or should not pursue graduate studies. And again, I would recommend you to check out those resources. I realize it's 2 o'clock. We're going to get to questions. I just want to show you other resources that I really recommend you use. These are malheureusement tous en anglais, mais ils sont protégés par votre mot de passe Passport York. Alors, vos informations que vous utilisez pour vos courriels, etc. But that means they're really good quality. They don't want other folks from other institutions to see the resources that have been developed at York. And I've taken a look at them. I've used them. They're really helpful, again, for the grant proposal aspect of the applications, as well as they provide information for your reference letters for your faculty members about how to write a strong reference letter. Then the last thing that I want to flag is more for current graduate students at Glendon, but there is one-on-one funding advising. There is an advisor appointed directly to Glendon from the Faculty of Graduate Studies. Again, it's Passport York protected, so you can only see the advisor's available hours through logging into your Passport York, but it's something that interests me. I hadn't heard of it until a few days ago when I was putting together this presentation. So, si jamais tu utilises cette ressource et tu veux me communiquer comment c'est allé, ça serait super. Je vous encourage tous de utiliser les ressources qui sont disponibles à vous. Okay. And then, like I've mentioned throughout this workshop, we're going to expand on a lot of the elements that I've put forward today, you know, the research proposal, the Canadian Commons CV, the portals for both of these elements. And we're even going to hear, hopefully, fingers crossed, from a past winner of the Cgsm who won last year, a student who I worked very closely with, is going to come and give her tips and tricks and just speak about her experience putting together an application for the Cgsm. Finally, thank you all for being so patient. I will answer questions now to the best of my abilities, but if you have to leave, I totally understand, and feel free to do so, but I am going to stay and answer questions if you folks have the time. Okay, so Lauren asks, do you know if the money we receive from the OGS and Cgsm has to go towards school, or can it be used for personal expenses as well? How do they send the money? Is it through the school, and will it appear on our account statement? That is a really good question. I believe it, from my understanding, it has to go towards school. It's often, I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to answer every question with saying I'm not 100% sure. Not every question, but this one for sure. From my understanding, the funding has to go towards your tuition in some way, or towards school expenses. I'm not sure if the idea, but it kind of depends, because in some ways it's also seen as like a salary for you at certain levels of your degree. So I think they would deposit it directly into your student account, but I'm not sure. This is a really good question. I guess my question to you is, I guess that would affect whether or not you want to apply. I'm going to take a screenshot of this question, or I don't know how I save these questions, because I can try to look up the answers and talk to my counterparts at Kiel. I'm going to stop sharing the screen now. And I'm just going to save these questions so that I can get back to you with them and let you know if I've applied, what answers I get. Sorry, folks. I'm just trying to copy these questions because they're really good. And again, I realize this is not the most helpful. Okay, and it's not letting me copy and paste the questions. Lauren, do you mind sending me this question in an email format?
Yeah, sure, I don't mind.
Yeah, do you mind? Just because it's not letting me copy and paste it at all from the chat. Okay, and I see Kelly, your hand is raised, so we'll get to you. So short answer is, I wish I wasn't recording right now, but I don't know the answer to this question, where it goes directly, but from my understanding, it's supposed to support your studies in some way. So whether that's like, you know, a bit of money so that you can focus on your research and not have to work a part-time job. That's kind of the idea. And also different schools have different kind of rules around the funding. So for instance, like if you win the OGS and the Cgsm, some schools will kind of give you a package around both of these and will give you kind of like sort of like a special offer that they come up with both of them, or you can only get the Cgsm, for instance, in some cases. Like if you win the OGS, then you have to kind of give it up if you also win the Cgsm, from what I understand.
But I know someone who's actually won both.
Oh yeah. I think it depends on each school, because I also know folks who have won both, but then they have to give up one of them, depending on the school. So again, I think it's very case by case basis with the institution to a certain extent. Can I move on to the next question, Lauren? Do you have a follow-up before?
I think I'll just email you, but I mean,
Okay.
I thought we could win both, and that might change some things because I thought like it'd be worth it to apply to both.
I think so depending on where you're looking to apply, like it's sort of, I would direct a lot of your questions directly to the program and the office that you're applying to, because again, they might have different schemes, right? They might have different things on offer. I'm going to move to the next question.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can ask you, Lauren, if you tell me where you're applying to and if it's at York, I can also contact some folks at York in the Faculty of Graduate Studies.
Yeah, it's the Masters of Environmental Studies program
Okay, cool.
at York.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I can try to contact some folks at FGS that I know.
Okay, amazing. Thanks.
Okay. So Fiona asks, do you recommend applying for OSAP for graduate studies? And do you have any good resources for finding external funding other than OGS, CGS, and other than the York website? Again, really good questions. Applying for OSAP for graduate studies, I mean, I don't see why not. Realistically, I don't know, you can tell me, I'm not a graduate student, but the funding that you receive from the awards isn't enough to live in Toronto, especially if you're in Toronto, or it's not a livable wage, right? So naturally, I think it would make sense to apply for OSAP just on a personal financial level. I guess I just don't see why you wouldn't try, especially if you need a loan, and maybe you can see what they get you. I know that OSAP OGS is affiliated with OSAP because like it's on the Ontario funding website. So I wonder if the amount of OSAP you receive is then contingent or kind of linked to you winning an OGS. I would assume yes.
Yeah, that's kind of why I was asking. Like, I'm wondering if it would look good to have applied for OSAP if you're planning to apply for OGS. Like, I don't know anything about this, so I don't know like if they're linked and if they're going to look and say, well, this person hasn't shown any need, so.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
That's really interesting. Okay, so I haven't thought of that.
But
you'd rather not apply for OGS, is that what you're saying?
I'd rather not apply for OSAP, but if it's
if it's a matter of like demonstrating financial need.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Okay. I think from what I've read, but again, I haven't read like the Reddit boards. I think that might be actually a good place to consult this.
Right.
It might, because it seems like a niche question that maybe they don't give the answer out to, explicitly, but on the OGS website, it never says anything about financial need. I think it really is an award. There's never any indication, although it is through the OSAP website, I don't think you need to express financial need because it is really research-based. You really have to put forward an application for it. It's not just, it is a bursary, it is a bourse, but I think it's just misnamed in a way. It's really a prize, in my view. Does that answer the first part of your question?
Yes.
In a little bit? And do you have any good resources for finding external funding other than OGS, CGS, and other than the York website? No, but I haven't really tried. So maybe that's something I have to look into. And I can consult with you, Fiona, about what I find. But from what I see, there are other opportunities through SHRC, right? Other than this CGSD. Have you looked into those? Like the Vanier and all that stuff? Yeah, okay.
I applied for Vanier, yeah.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, you're definitely like on top of it. Okay, so those are my, again, I really apologize, folks. Like I should really mention that this is like my second year running these workshops. So I mentioned at the beginning, kind of learning, you know, sort of one step ahead, but I guess not now in this case. So learning with you alongside you. Kelly, did you have a question? Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's just because I was scared when you said that all for the doctorates were almost closed, because I was looking at one that it's supposed to be the deadline in December. So,
oh yes, which one were you looking at? I was focused on the CGSD.
oh, okay. It's because I went to the HR, and then I went to one that it's I have it here. It's Institute of Aging, so it's a fund for that.
Okay, so are you in that line of work? Like, is that what your research? Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I was just talking about this CGSD doctoral overall.
Okay.
So I was just talking about if you go to this one overview website, it says that the deadline is October 17th. Right. Okay. But there are other awards besides this one.
Okay.
Right. So maybe what I'm saying is maybe you're looking at a different award. Like if you pop that in the chat, I can take a look.
Yeah, is the operating grant? I don't know if
because there are many grants, many awards, like Fiona even asked, right? Like there's so much out there and it's not really consolidated in one database. So again, it's a matter of clicking through and opening different tabs and seeing what's what.
Well, I went into ResearchNet and it gave me a list of all the grants, and I just went with the deadline and because some are for Première Nation. There's another one that you need to live in Ontario, for example, or whatever. So this one, I think I apply, and that's why I was looking on that. But then, for a moment, I was like in panic, like, oh my God.
No, don't panic, don't panic. Two things, Kelly, maybe you could share that resource that you just mentioned, because I think Fiona was looking for something like that. Sure. The ResearchNet, would that be all right for you to share?
Directly the CI, let me put it here.
Okay.
I don't know if it's gonna.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
That one it will give you, but.
Okay, this is great.
With that one, you can find you can filter by the ones that are still available.
Right.
On the day.
And you can view more even.
And
okay, amazing. More.
And it's also divided by the types of grants.
And is this specifically though for your area of research for the sciences?
Well, I put the health because I'm focused on health. So it sent me directly from the CIHR, sorry.
This is amazing. Yeah.
To this ResearchNet.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so maybe this is just for your
and here you can fill out your CV and you have all the tools. That's why I went there.
Okay.
And then you can see all your applications, but
for sure.
Can I share my screen and I can show you questions that I have?
Yeah, for sure. Do you mind if I stop recording? Does that
sure.
anyone?
No, better if I stop.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And then folks can stay or leave depending. So I'm gonna stop recording.